I never expected my life to turn upside down over a simple question. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that should have been peaceful. The sun poured through the living room window, casting long shadows across the floor. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels, not really paying attention to anything. The house smelled like fresh coffee, Lillian's coffee. She had just come back from brunch with her friends, dressed in a fitted black dress, her makeup still perfect. She stood in front of the mirror by the door, adjusting her hair. Then, without looking at me, she asked, "Do you ever wonder what it's like to be someone else?" I frowned, lowering the remote. "What do you mean?" She turned slightly, watching me through the mirror reflection. Like, to be a different kind of person. Someone more confident, more exciting. The kind of guy who walks into a room and commands attention. Her voice was light, almost playful, but there was something underneath it, something sharp. I chuckled, trying to shake off the strange feeling crawling up my spine. "I don't know. I've always been comfortable being me." Lillian sighed, shaking her head. "That's the thing, Wendell. You're comfortable, but comfortable isn't attractive." That's when she turned around completely, finally looking at me. Her eyes weren't cold, not exactly, but there was something missing. I sat up. "What are you trying to say?" She hesitated for a second, then crossed her arms. "I just feel like, I don't know, maybe you've never really been a real man." The words didn't hit me all at once. They landed softly, like an echo that hadn't reached full volume yet. I blinked, staring at her. "A real man?" She shrugged. "I mean, look at you. You've always been steady, predictable, nice. But nice doesn't get my heart racing, you know?" She said it like she was explaining something obvious, like I should have already known. My pulse stuttered in my ears. For years, I had thought our life was solid, maybe not thrilling, but built on something real. I had worked hard to provide for her, to be dependable, to be the kind of husband she could count on. But now, standing there in that sleek black dress, she looked at me as if I had failed her in some fundamental way. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Lillian, is there someone else?" A flicker of something crossed her face. Not guilt, not fear, more like annoyance. "Does it matter?" That was my answer. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to fight for someone who didn't respect me. If she thought I wasn't a real man, then fine. I'd stop pretending to be the kind of man she wanted. She had no idea what that truly meant. Lillian's words lingered in the air long after she left the room, like the bitter taste of burnt coffee. I sat there, staring at the spot where she had been standing just moments ago, trying to piece together what had just happened. Had I really been so blind? Had she felt this way for a long time and just never said anything? Or had she been waiting for the moment I would finally understand that I wasn't enough for her? I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes? Hours? The sunlight outside dimmed, turning golden, then orange, then a deep shade of purple. The house was silent, except for the occasional creak of the wall settling. Then I heard it, the soft chime of Lillian's phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. I glanced over and saw the screen light up. One new message. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. But something deep inside me, something raw, something that had been quietly screaming since she spoke those words, made me get up and take a step forward. I didn't touch her phone. I didn't need to. The message preview was right there on the screen. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was unforgettable winking face." A name I didn't recognize was attached to it, but at that moment the name didn't matter. The meaning did. I stared at it, my pulse thudding against my temples. So that was it. She hadn't just grown bored of me. She had already replaced me. I exhaled, slow and steady, as a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to confront her in some drama scene like in the movies. No, I was going to do something better. I was going to let her live with the consequences of what she had just done. Lillian came home late that night. I was still sitting in the same place on the couch, the television now playing some late-night infomercial about kitchen knives. I barely heard it. She walked in, heels clicking against the hardwood floor, tossing her coat over the back of a chair. Her face was flushed, her hair slightly tousled. like she had been somewhere else before coming home to me. I didn't say a word. She paused, glancing at me. "You still up?" I turned my head slowly, meeting her gaze. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." Her lips pressed together. "Guilt? No, more like discomfort. Wendell, about earlier, I didn't mean to hurt you." I let that sit between us for a moment before I answered, "Yeah, you did." Her face twitched slightly, like she hadn't expected me to say that. I pushed myself up from the couch, walking past her toward the kitchen. I didn't look back. "Good night, Lily." I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to argue, to plead, to show some kind of emotion. But I wasn't going to, because something had changed inside me that night. I wasn't playing my role anymore, and Lillian had no idea what that meant for her. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was upset, not because I was heartbroken, but because I was awake for the first time in years. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the city outside. Lillian had climbed into bed an hour ago, screen rolling through her phone under the covers, completely unbothered. She never even said good night. It wasn't like I expected anything else. At around 2 a.m., she finally turned off her phone, rolling over with her back to me. I could hear her steady breathing, peaceful, relaxed, like a woman with no guilt. I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly. She had no idea that I had seen the message earlier, no idea that I now knew. And I wasn't about to tell her, because Lillian wanted me to be weak. She wanted me to be the kind of man who begged, who pleaded, who tried to win her back after she had already thrown me away. She wasn't going to get that from me. The next morning, I woke up before her. The sun was barely rising, the soft glow creeping through the curtains. I sat at the edge of the bed for a long time, feeling nothing. Not sadness, not anger, just clarity. When I finally stood, I didn't move quietly. I didn't tiptoe around like I usually did to let her sleep in. Instead, I made as much noise as I wanted. Opened drawers roughly, let the closet door bang shut, walked heavily across the room. Lillian groaned, shifting under the covers. "Ugh. What the hell, Wendell?" I didn't answer. I walked into the bathroom, took my time with my morning routine, and when I stepped back out, she was sitting up in bed, rubbing her eyes. "You okay?" she mumbled, sounding half asleep. For a moment, I considered saying, "Yeah, I'm fine." I considered pretending, keeping things normal like I always had. But then I thought, why? So instead, I met her gaze and said, "I don't know, Lillian. Are you?" That woke her up. She frowned, fully sitting up now. "What's that supposed to mean?" I shrugged. "Just a question." She watched me for a few seconds, then sighed and tossed the blankets off, heading for the shower. No apology. No explanation. She still thought I was playing my old role. She was wrong. I left before she got out of the shower. Normally, I'd wait for her, make her coffee, talk about our plans for the day. But today, I had other things to do. The first thing I did, I changed my entire routine. I didn't go to the same coffee shop. I didn't take the same route to work. Instead, I went to a gym, someplace I hadn't stepped foot in since before we got married. I wasn't out of shape, but I had definitely let myself go in the sense that I stopped prioritizing myself. Not anymore. An hour later, drenched in sweat, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a man I hadn't seen in years. Not a different man, just me. The real me. The one I had buried under years of trying to make Lillian happy. And now that I had nothing left to lose, I realized something else. Lillian had spent so much time looking down on me, convinced that I would always be there, that I would always try, that I would always care. She didn't understand that she had set me free. The cracks in our marriage weren't new, but for the first time, I was watching them form, and I wasn't rushing to fix them. She wanted to see what life was like without a boring, predictable husband. I was about to show her, and she wasn't going to like it. Something changed in me that morning. Not suddenly, not like a lightning strike, but like a slow, creeping realization that had been waiting to surface for years. I had bent myself into the shape of the perfect husband, making sure Lillian was happy, secure, taken care of. I had adapted to her needs, her moods, her expectations, and in return, she had looked at me like I was something to tolerate rather than someone to value. I finally understood something important. I wasn't the weak one in this relationship. She was. Lillian was the one who needed constant attention, endless validation, excitement for the sake of excitement. She was the one who couldn't sit still in a happy, stable marriage without looking for something more. So I stopped playing the part, and it didn't take long for her to notice. That night, I didn't rush home like I usually did. I didn't check in with her, didn't text her to see what she wanted for dinner, didn't make sure she had everything she needed. Instead, I went out by myself. I found an old bar I used to love, a quiet place on the edge of town with dim lights and an old jukebox in the corner. I sat at the counter, ordered a drink, and for the first time in years, I let myself just exist. Not as a husband, not as the man trying to keep his marriage together, just as me. At some point, a woman sat down a few seats away. I barely noticed her at first, too lost in my own thoughts, but then she spoke. "You look like someone who just had an epiphany." I turned, meeting her gaze. She was in her mid-30s, confident, the kind of woman who looked like she had seen the world and knew exactly who she was. I smirked. "Something like that." She tilted her head, studying me. "Let me guess. You just realized you've been giving too much of yourself to someone who doesn't appreciate it." I exhaled, shaking my head. "You a mind reader or something?" She laughed, a low, knowing sound. "No, I've just been where you are." I didn't ask for details, and she didn't offer them. But for the next hour, we sat there talking about everything except my marriage, about life, about travel, about books, about the little things people forget to appreciate. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't realized I was missing. I felt seen. Not as someone's husband, not as someone who had failed to be a real man, just as Wendell. I wasn't flirting with her. That wasn't what this was. But the simple act of sitting there, talking to someone who actually cared about what I had to say, felt like waking up from a long sleep. By the time I finally got home, it was late. Lillian was waiting. She was sitting on the couch, her legs tucked under her, scrolling through her phone. When I walked in, she glanced up, then did a double take. "Where were you?" Her tone wasn't angry, not yet, just surprised. I shrugged, setting my keys down. "Out." She frowned, putting her phone down. "Out where?" I met her gaze, and for the first time I didn't feel the need to explain myself. "Just out." Lillian blinked, like she wasn't sure what to do with that answer. Normally, I tell her everything. Normally, I try to smooth things over, make her feel comfortable. But tonight, I didn't, and I could see the gears turning in her head. Something about me was different, and she didn't like it. She tilted her head, her lips pressing together. "Are you mad at me?" I considered that for a moment. No, it was the truth. I wasn't mad. I wasn't resentful. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I just didn't care the way I used to. Lillian studied me for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out what had changed. But she didn't ask, and I didn't tell her. Instead, I walked past her, heading for the bedroom. "Good night, Lillian." She didn't respond because for the first time, she didn't know what to say. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, something was different. I could feel it in the air, like the pressure changed before a storm. Lillian was watching me, not in the usual way, not in the distant, distracted way she had for the past year, where I was just background noise in her life. No, this was different. She was studying me, noticing me, and it wasn't because she missed me. It was because something about me had changed, and she didn't understand it. For the past decade, I had been predictable, steady, a man she could count on to be in the same place at the same time, doing the same things without question. Now, I was doing none of those things. I didn't rush to make her coffee. I didn't ask how she slept. I didn't fill the silence between us with small talk to make things feel normal. Instead, I went about my morning like I had nothing to prove. Lillian cleared her throat. "You were home late last night." I barely glanced at her as I adjusted my tie in the hallway mirror. "Yeah." Silence. I could feel her waiting for me to explain myself, to reassure her, to apologize for doing something outside of her expectations. But I didn't because Lillian wasn't my priority anymore, and she felt it. "Did you have a work thing?" she asked, a casualness in her tone that wasn't quite casual. I smirked to myself. She was fishing. "No." That's all I said. She waited for me to say more. I could feel her eyes on me as I grabbed my keys, as I checked my watch, as I pulled out my phone. But I didn't give her anything else. Finally, she gave a forced little laugh. "Okay. What's going on, Wendell?" I turned to face her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen in years. Uncertainty. She had spent so long assuming I would always be the same, that I would always be safe, always be predictable, always be hers. But she was realizing, too late, that she had miscalculated. "Nothing's going on," I said, meeting her gaze with calm indifference. "I just finally figured out what I want." She frowned, crossing her arms. "And what's that?" I smiled, stepping past her toward the door. "To live my life for me." And then I walked out, leaving her standing there, wondering when she had lost control. I didn't go to work right away. Instead, I went to a tailor. For the past 10 years, I had worn the same type of clothes. Plain, practical, the kind of outfits a good husband was expected to wear. Nothing flashy, nothing that drew attention. That morning, I decided I was done with that. I walked into the shop, letting my fingers brush over the fabrics, feeling the weight of the choices in front of me. I let the tailor measure me, choosing a sharp navy blue suit that actually fit me instead of the loose, uninspired ones I had worn for years. I bought cologne, something subtle, something confident, something that didn't smell like I was trying too hard. Then I got a haircut, not a drastic change, just enough to make me look like the man I had forgotten I was. By the time I stepped out of the shop, something inside me had fully clicked into place. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about making Lillian jealous or proving a point. This was about me. I had been waiting for someone else to validate me for too long. Now I was going to validate myself. When I got home that night, I wasn't surprised to find Lillian waiting for me again. This time, she wasn't sitting on the couch, pretending to be distracted. This time, she was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, looking directly at me. "You got a haircut." I smirked. "Noticed that, did you?" Her eyes flickered over my new suit, the way it fit me, the way I carried myself. Something shifted in her expression. Lillian was an expert at keeping control, at staying in charge of every conversation, at making sure she always had the upper hand. But tonight, she looked off balance. "Why are you acting different?" she asked. I tilted my head, amused. "Different from what?" She exhaled sharply, clearly frustrated that I wasn't playing into whatever script she had in mind. "From the way you've always been." I let a beat of silence stretch between us before I answered. "Maybe I just realized I don't have to be that guy anymore." Her jaw tightened, and I knew she was starting to feel something she hadn't expected. Regret. For so long, she had believed I would always be there, that no matter how much she disrespected me, how much she looked down on me, I would always be predictable. Now, for the first time, she was realizing she had been wrong. I walked past her toward the bedroom, already unbuttoning my cuffs. She didn't follow because, for the first time in our entire marriage, she wasn't the one in control. And deep down, I think she was starting to realize something even worse. She had broken me, but instead of leaving me shattered, she had set me free. And there was no coming back from that. The thing about change is, people don't notice it all at once. It starts small. Subtle shifts, different choices, a new energy. But then one day, they wake up and realize the person they took for granted isn't there anymore. And that's exactly what happened with Lillian. She didn't panic the first time I came home late, or the second, or the third. She told herself it was nothing. But by the fourth, she felt it. By the fifth, she was watching me like a hawk. And by the sixth, she was starting to lose it. The morning she finally snapped, I was in the middle of tying my tie when I felt her standing in the doorway behind me. I didn't acknowledge her right away. I wanted to see how long it would take before she said something. Turns out, not long. "Where are you going?" Her voice was neutral, but there was an edge beneath it, the kind of sharpness that wasn't there before. I adjusted my collar and met her eyes in the mirror. Work. She narrowed her eyes. Since when do you dress like that for work? I smirked. There it was. Since I felt like it. Her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She looked me up and down, trying to read me, trying to find a way back into my head. So this is who you are now? She asked. No, I corrected. This is who I've always been. The muscles in her jaw tensed. You're acting weird. I turned, facing her fully. No, Lillian. I'm just finally acting like a man who knows his worth. Silence. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I picked up my keys, brushing past her. Have a good day. And then I walked out just like that. No waiting, no worrying, no wondering how she felt about it. For the first time, I was completely, unapologetically free. I went through my day as usual, but something felt different. Not in me, in her. Lillian had always been cold, distant, the kind of woman who rarely showed weakness, who thrived on control. But when I got home that night, she was waiting, sitting on the couch, her leg bouncing, eyes flicking toward the clock like she had been tracking the hours. I set my keys down and barely made it 3 steps into the house before she blurted out, "Are you seeing someone?" I stopped. I could feel the weight of her question hanging in the air between us. Slowly, I turned to face her. "Why do you ask?" Her fingers gripped the edge of the couch cushion. "You've been different, distant, dressing better, smiling more, staying out late. So tell me, are you seeing someone?" I tilted my head, studying her. For a woman who claimed I was boring, predictable, not a real man, she sure seemed invested now. And that's when it hit me. She hadn't expected this. She thought I'd crumble. She thought I'd chase after her, beg for her attention, try to prove myself. She never considered that I might walk away. I took a slow step closer, watching her shift uncomfortably under my gaze. If I was, would it matter? Her expression faltered for just a second, just long enough for me to see the truth. It would. It would matter a lot. But she wasn't ready to admit that yet. She scoffed, shaking her head. "You're ridiculous." I smirked. "Maybe." And then I walked past her, heading toward the bedroom. Just as I reached the doorway, she spoke again. "Wendell." I paused. Her voice was softer now, not angry, not mocking, just uncertain. Like she had finally realized what she had done. I didn't turn around. I just stood there for a second before saying, "Yeah." She hesitated. I could almost hear the war in her head, the way she was trying to figure out how to say whatever she wanted to say. But in the end, she didn't say anything at all. I waited a beat, then smirked to myself and walked into the bedroom. I never thought I'd be the one walking away. But God, did it feel good. Lillian was unraveling. I saw it in the way she watched me, in the way her perfectly calculated demeanor had started to crack. For years, she had controlled every dynamic between us. How we argued, how we reconciled, how I adjusted myself to keep the peace. She dictated the rhythm of our marriage, and I had played along, believing that was just the way things were. But now, she had lost control, and it was driving her insane. The moment that broke her, it happened on a Thursday night. I had just finished at the gym and decided to grab a drink at the bar before heading home. Not to meet anyone, not to flirt, just because I wanted to. That alone was enough to make this night different from the hundreds before it. I sat at the bar, nursing a whiskey, when I heard someone say my name. I turned and saw Lillian's friend, Carmen. She was sipping on a cocktail, her red nails tapping against the glass, as she gave me a look of mild surprise. Well, look who's out past curfew." I smirked. "Didn't know I had one." She laughed, leaning in slightly. "You know, I always told Lillian she was lucky. You were the good husband, the kind that never gave her any trouble." I raised an eyebrow. "And now?" Carmen studied me, tilting her head. "Now, I don't know. You seem different." I took a slow sip of my drink. Maybe I just got tired of playing a role that didn't suit me. She hummed, swirling the ice in her glass. "Well, for what it's worth, I like this version of you." It wasn't flirtation, not exactly, but there was something else in her tone. Curiosity, maybe even respect. She wasn't the only one. When I got home that night, Lillian was waiting. She was in the kitchen, pacing, her phone in her hand. The second I walked in, her eyes snapped to mine. "Where the hell were you?" Her voice was sharp, accusatory, but beneath it, she sounded nervous. I set my keys down, unbothered. "Out." Her jaw clenched. "With who?" I shrugged, walking past her toward the fridge. "Does it matter?" She let out a frustrated laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Wow, you really don't care anymore, do you?" I grabbed a water bottle, twisting off the cap. "That's not true." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've completely checked out." I took a slow sip before answering. "Maybe I just finally learned to match your energy, Lillian." Her lips parted slightly, like she hadn't expected me to say that. She thought I would break first. She thought I would beg. But instead, I had become the version of myself she never wanted to see, the man who no longer needed her validation. And that terrified her. She didn't speak to me for the rest of the night. Not at dinner, not before bed. She sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, pretending like I wasn't there. I let her because I knew what was coming next. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of the bedroom door opening. Lillian. She slipped under the covers beside me, her body warm, her perfume still lingering from the evening. Then she reached for me. Soft touches, familiar patterns, the same way she used to, back when she was still interested. Except now, she wasn't doing it because she wanted me. She was doing it because she was losing me, because she could feel that power slipping away, and this was the only way she knew how to take it back. I turned my head slightly, meeting her gaze in the dark. Lillian. Her fingers paused against my skin. She knew what was coming. "This isn't going to fix anything." Silence. For a moment, I thought she might deny it, that she might try to play it off like she just missed me or wanted to be close to her husband again. But she didn't, because we both knew the truth. She pulled her hand away slowly. "I don't know what's happening to us." Her voice was barely above a whisper. I exhaled, staring up at the ceiling. "I do." And then I rolled over, turning my back to her, because for the first time in our entire marriage, I wasn't going to be the one trying to fix something she had already broken. I wasn't playing this game anymore, and now she was the one losing sleep over it. I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because everything had been fixed, not because Lillian had suddenly changed, but because I no longer cared. There was no more weight on my chest, no more questioning myself, no more second-guessing my worth. And the best part? I was finally free. The morning she finally understood, I got out of bed before Lillian woke up. I showered, got dressed, made myself coffee. Not her usual vanilla almond milk latte, just a strong black coffee, exactly the way I liked it. And then I sat by the window watching the city wake up. For the first time in years, I felt like I was seeing my life from the outside, like I was watching a version of myself I didn't recognize, one who had spent too much time trying to hold on to something that was already gone. Behind me, I heard the bedroom door open. Lillian shuffled out, still in her robe, rubbing her eyes. When she saw me sitting there, her expression tightened. She knew. She knew this was different. She sat down across from me at the table, fingers curling around her coffee cup. "You didn't say good night last night." Her voice was quiet, careful. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Didn't feel like it. She exhaled through her nose, staring into her cup like she was trying to find the right words. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, finally, she said it. "I don't want to lose you, Wendell." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she thought she still had a choice. I leaned back, watching her carefully. "Lillian, you lost me the moment you stopped respecting me." Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to argue. But she didn't, because she knew it was true. She could feel it. I had stopped chasing. I had stopped caring. I wasn't hers anymore, and nothing terrified her more. I stood up, grabbing my keys and my bag. Lillian frowned. "Where are you going?" I smiled. "To start my life over." She blinked, like she didn't quite understand. "Wendell, wait. Can we talk about this?" I paused at the door, looking back at her one last time. I could see the panic in her eyes now, the realization that she had miscalculated everything. She had spent so long trying to convince herself that I wasn't a real man. But now that I had stopped playing the role she expected, she finally saw me. Too bad for her, it was too late. I smiled, shaking my head. "Take care, Lillian." And with that, I walked out the door. I didn't look back, not once. I wasn't walking away to punish her. I wasn't walking away to make her regret it. I was walking away because I finally realized I deserved better. Because for the first time in my life, I was choosing myself. And you know what? Felt damn good.